The first plasma wave hit Earth's orbital defense grid like a supernova of destruction. Captain Marcus Chen gripped the command chair of the U.S. Defiance, watching through the bridge's holographic displays as humanity's last line of defense began to crumble. It hadn't always been this way. 36 months earlier, first contact with the Exarchon Imperium had seemed promising. Their diplomatic envoy had arrived with what appeared to be an offer of scientific collaboration. Ambassador Helena Reyes had stood proudly in the United Earth Council chambers, her crisp United Nations Space Command uniform a testament to humanity's growing interstellar presence. The Exarchon representative, a towering crystalline being named Vornik, had spoken of mutual exploration, shared technological advancements. It was all a lie. Within weeks of establishing diplomatic relations, the Exarchon began positioning their fleet. Intelligence reports that Marcus had personally vetted showed unusual gravitational anomalies near Jupiter's moons. His tactical team had raised alarms, but political leadership wanted to believe in diplomacy. "Sir," Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez called from the tactical station, her voice cutting through the chaos of the current battle. "We've lost contact with Mars colony. Orbital defense platforms Omega and Delta are offline." Marcus closed his eyes for a moment. Mars had been humanity's first true extraterrestrial settlement. Over 3 million souls, now likely gone. The holographic displays showed nothing but expanding debris fields where entire cities once stood. The Defiance shuddered. Marcus knew this ship. He'd served on her for a decade. She was humanity's most advanced battlecruiser, a testament to decades of technological innovation. Quantum-folded hull plating, regenerative shield systems, experimental particle cannons that could theoretically punch through any known defensive technology. And yet, they were losing. "Status report," he barked. Lieutenant Commander David Kim, his executive officer, looked up from his console. His face was a map of exhaustion and barely contained terror. "We're down to 32% combat capacity. The Exarchon's energy weapons are cutting through our shield harmonics like they're reading our defensive algorithms in real time." That was the most terrifying part. The Exarchon didn't just have superior technology. They seemed to understand human technology at a level that suggested something more than simple intelligence. It was as if they had been studying humanity for decades, preparing for this moment. Vornik's words from that first diplomatic meeting echoed in Marcus's mind. "Humanity represents a unique potential. Your species thinks in ways most galactic civilizations cannot comprehend." At the time, Marcus had thought it was a compliment. Now he understood it as a warning. The communication systems crackled. A transmission from Earth's ground command, encrypted, desperate. "All remaining naval assets," the voice cut through static. "Implement Protocol Omega." Repeat, "Implement Omega." Marcus knew what that meant. Total evacuation. Preservation of critical personnel and knowledge at all costs. The complete abandonment of planetary defense in favor of survival. He turned to Sarah. "Plot a quantum fold jump. Coordinates 427 Gamma 9. The hidden coordinates." Her eyes widened. Those coordinates were known to fewer than a dozen people in the entire human defense network. A secret location prepared decades ago, a last resort sanctuary that even most of the United Earth Council didn't know existed. "All hands," Marcus spoke into the ship-wide communication system, his voice steady despite the apocalypse surrounding them. "Prepare for emergency quantum displacement. This is not a retreat. This is a strategic relocation." Outside the viewports, Earth burned. Massive Exarchon battleships, shaped like impossible geometric nightmares of obsidian and emerald energy, carved through humanity's orbital infrastructure. Entire continents were being glassed, their surfaces turned to molten rock by weapons that defied known physics. The Defiance's quantum drive began to charge. Around them, a ragtag fleet of less than 24 ships prepared to make the jump. Research vessels, half-disabled military ships, scientific platforms. Humanity's last hope compressed into a handful of vessels. Marcus watched the countdown. 12 seconds to quantum fold. 8 seconds. 5. May God have mercy on us all, he whispered. 3, 2, 1. The rogue planet was a nightmare of perpetual darkness. Designated KX 719 by astronomers decades ago, it drifted in the outer reaches of what humans once called the Oort cloud, a massive frozen world ejected from its original solar system eons ago. Its surface was a labyrinth of massive caverns, carved by ancient geological processes, now transformed into humanity's last hope. Dr. Elena Rodriguez moved through the central research hub, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces that seemed to pulse with an almost living intelligence. Around her, the most brilliant minds humanity could salvage worked with a desperation born of total extinction. Called Dr. Akira Tanaka, the quantum physics lead. You need to see this. The holographic display revealed a microscopic animation of their latest breakthrough. Nano-adaptive molecules that could not just repair damage, but fundamentally redesign themselves in response to external threats. It was more than armor. It was a living, thinking defense system. Alina remembered the day they'd begun this project. It was 15 years ago, during a classified meeting that most of humanity would never know existed. A group of scientists, military strategists, and forward-thinking politicians had realized that humanity's greatest threat wasn't just external invasion. It was the potential for complete technological obsolescence. The Xarchon aren't just technologically advanced, she had argued then. They're technologically adaptive. We need a system that doesn't just defend, it learns. Most had laughed. Not anymore. The cavern complex was more than a research facility. It was a complete ecosystem of survival. Massive fabrication chambers could generate entire starship components from raw materials harvested from the planet's core. Hydroponic farms provided food. Fusion reactors pulled energy from the planet's molten heart. Every system was designed with redundancy, with survival as its only goal. Captain Marcus Chen entered, his uniform torn and burned from their escape. He moved with the controlled precision of a military man who had lost everything but refused to show weakness. Progress? He asked. Alina pulled up a holographic schematic that would have looked like nonsense to anyone else. Intricate molecular structures that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. We're close. The nano-adaptive matrix can now not just repair damage. It can transform the very composition of a ship's hull in real time. Marcus studied the display. How close is close? Theoretical tests show a 94% probability of total molecular restructuring under combat conditions, Dr. Tanaka interjected. But theoretical and practical are two different things. A warning alarm cut through their discussion. One of the outer monitoring systems had detected something. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, Marcus's daughter and the fleet's most talented pilot, rushed in. Xarchon scout ship, long-range scan. They might have tracked our quantum signature. The room tensed. Everything they had built could be destroyed in moments. Alina's fingers flew across the interface. Activate Project Chrysalis, she commanded. The entire facility seemed to come alive. Massive blast doors sealed. Quantum camouflage systems engage. But more than that, the research itself began to move. Tanaka looked shocked. The nano-adaptive systems, they're preparing to defend themselves. What happened next would become legendary among the survivors. The Xarchon scout ship approached, its scanning beams probing the planet's surface. Suddenly, the very ground seemed to shift. Molecular structures that had appeared to be solid rock began to reconfigure. When the Xarchon ship fired its initial reconnaissance burst, it hit nothing. The planet itself had become a camouflage, a living shield that could adapt faster than any targeting system could track. Marcus looked at Alina, a glimmer of hope replacing the despair that had haunted him since their escape from Earth. We're not just surviving, he said quietly. We're evolving. Alina's smile was razor-sharp. The Xarchon thought they understood humanity. They have no idea what we're capable of. Outside, the darkness of the rogue planet concealed humanity's most dangerous secret, a forge of survival that would soon become a weapon of unprecedented potential. The first true test came unexpectedly. Dr. Akira Tanaka's hands trembled as he reviewed the initial test results. What they had created was no longer just technology. It was something that blurred the line between engineering and living organism. The nano-adaptive matrix wasn't simply a defensive system. It was a sentient network that could learn, predict, and transform faster than any computer ever designed. "It's alive," Elena Rodriguez muttered, more to herself than to anyone else in the laboratory. The breakthrough happened during a simulated combat scenario. They had reconstructed a fragment of a Xarkon energy weapon, recovered from their initial invasion, and used it to test the new hull coating. The expectation was simple: see how long the adaptive material could withstand concentrated energy discharge. What happened defied every known law of physics. The test panel didn't just resist the energy. It began to analyze the weapon's frequency, its molecular composition, its energy signature. Within milliseconds, the nano-adaptive matrix had not only absorbed the weapon's energy, but had begun to restructure itself, creating a molecular counterpattern that would render similar weapons ineffective. Captain Marcus Chen watched the holographic display, his military mind racing with the implications. "This isn't just defense," he said slowly. "This is predictive adaptation." Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, who had been running the simulation, looked up with a mixture of excitement and something closer to fear. "Sir, the system is doing more than defending. It's learning, evolving." The laboratory fell silent. They had been working toward this for years, a technology that could truly adapt in real time. But this was different. The nano-adaptive matrix wasn't just responding to threats. It was anticipating them. It was thinking. Elena pulled up multiple data streams, her fingers dancing across holographic interfaces. "Look at the molecular restructuring pattern. It's not just changing to defend. It's changing to improve itself. Each potential threat becomes a learning opportunity." Tanaka's voice was almost reverent. "We've created something that doesn't just protect, it grows stronger with each attack." The implications were staggering. A starship equipped with this technology would become more powerful with every encounter. Energy weapons would become useless. Kinetic attacks would be transformed into additional defensive capabilities. The very concept of warfare would be fundamentally altered. But there was a deeper concern. "We need to discuss control," Marcus interjected. His military training kicked in, seeing both the potential and the danger. A system this adaptive could potentially become unpredictable. Elena's response was immediate. "Controlled unpredictability is humanity's greatest strength. The Xarkon thought they understood us. They were wrong." The first physical prototype was nothing like a traditional starship. Where most vessels were angular and rigid, this experimental craft looked almost organic. Its hull seemed to breathe, to pulse with an inner light that shifted and changed. Sensors that looked like metallic nerve endings extended and retracted. It was less a machine and more a living organism designed for survival. During the initial test flight, Sarah piloted the craft through a series of increasingly complex scenarios: simulated weapon attacks, gravitational stress tests, quantum interference patterns. Each test pushed the ship beyond what any previous design could withstand. And each time, the ship learned. By the final test, the vessel had developed counter-strategies to attacks that hadn't even been programmed into its initial database. It was generating defensive protocols in real time, anticipating threats before they could even be fully conceptualized. "We're not just building a weapon," Elena said, watching the test results. "We're creating a new form of intelligence." Marcus understood the unspoken message. This wasn't just about survival anymore. This was about proving humanity's unique capacity for innovation, for adaptation. The Xarkon had thought they could crush humanity. Instead, they had just provided the ultimate catalyst for human evolution. As the test concluded, the experimental ship's hull glimmered. Part metal, part something entirely new. A living testament to human ingenuity. The technological revolution had begun. The colony of New Horizon had been running silent for months. Nestled in the Ta City system, it was one of the last human settlements that the Exarchon believed they had completely subjugated. 12,000 colonists lived beneath the surface, their existence masked by advanced quantum-dampening fields and geological camouflage. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez gripped the control interfaces of the prototype ship, now officially designated the U.S. Prometheus. Her call sign was Wraith, a name that would soon become legendary among the survivors. "Incoming Xarchon patrol," she called out, her voice calm despite the massive energy signatures approaching the colony. 3 heavy cruisers. Looks like a standard extermination sweep. In the command center beneath the colony, Captain Marcus Chen watched the holographic displays. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood beside him, her fingers hovering over a complex interface that seemed to breathe with its own intelligence. "This is our first real-world test," Elena muttered. "Theoretical simulations are one thing. Actual combat is another." The Xarchon ships were monstrous things, crystalline structures that seemed to defy traditional engineering. Their weapons could slice through conventional shielding like paper. In previous encounters, they had decimated entire human fleets without losing a single vessel. Sarah's voice crackled through the comm. "Prometheus is ready. Adaptive protocols at maximum sensitivity." What happened next would become the turning point of human resistance. The Xarchon ships dropped out of faster-than-light translation, their weapons already charging. Massive energy collectors began to concentrate destructive potential that could vaporize entire cities in seconds. Standard human defense protocols would have involved evacuation, desperate resistance, ultimately futile survival attempts. The Prometheus moved differently. As the first energy weapon discharged, a lance of pure destruction that would have obliterated any previous human vessel, something extraordinary occurred. The ship didn't just deflect the attack, it absorbed it. Sarah felt the ship's systems synchronizing with the incoming energy. Molecular structures shifted, adapted, transformed. The weapon's own energy became part of the ship's defensive matrix, its destructive potential converted into additional protective capabilities. Energy absorption at 247%. The ship's AI reported. Defensive matrix recalibrating. Threat analysis complete. In the command center, Marcus and Elena watched in stunned silence. The Prometheus didn't just survive. It attacked. Tendrils of adaptive material began to extend from the ship's hull, not weapons in any traditional sense, but living, thinking extensions of the vessel itself. They probed the Xarchon ship's energy signatures, learning, analyzing, preparing to counter. The second Exarchon cruiser fired. Its weapon was unlike anything in human records, a focused quantum disruption beam designed to tear apart molecular structures at their most fundamental level. The Prometheus sang. There was no other way to describe it. The ship's adaptive matrix began to resonate, creating a quantum field that not only neutralized the attack, but began to disassemble the Xarchon weapon's fundamental structure. It was learning faster than the alien technology could adapt. Sarah's voice carried a mixture of professional calm and barely contained excitement. They have no idea what's happening. The third Exarchon ship attempted to retreat, but the Prometheus was faster. Adaptive material extended like living tendrils, interfacing with the alien vessel's systems. It wasn't destroying, it was understanding. "I'm reading complete system integration," Sarah reported. "The ship is downloading the Xarchon vessel's entire technological database." In the command center, Elena Rodriguez allowed herself a tight smile. "Not just a weapon," she said softly. "A universal translator of technological intent." When the encounter ended, 3 advanced Xarchon cruisers had been completely neutralized. Not destroyed, not damaged. Neutralized, converted, understood. The colony of New Horizon remained hidden. But something had changed. The Exarchon would soon learn that humanity was no longer just a species to be conquered. They were a technological force that could not be comprehended by traditional means of warfare. The first contact was complete. The retaliation had begun. The transmission came encrypted, buried beneath layers of quantum-scrambled algorithms that would take even Xarkon quantum computers decades to decode. It was simple. 12 words that would change everything. On a mining colony buried beneath the methane ice of Titan's underground caverns, Aria Zhang looked up from her maintenance console. She had been a simple geological survey technician before the invasion. Now she was about to become something entirely different. The encrypted message wasn't just a communication. It was a transformation. Throughout human-controlled space, or what remained of it, hidden settlements began to stir. What appeared to be simple mining outposts, agricultural complexes, and scientific research stations were about to reveal their true purpose. Aria's fingers moved across the console. Beneath the standard mining equipment, an entire arsenal of adaptive technology began to activate. Drilling machines reconfigured themselves. Atmospheric processors became potential weapon systems. The entire facility was no longer just a survival outpost. It was a living, breathing defensive node. In the command center of the hidden base on the rogue planet KX-719, Dr. Elena Rodriguez watched as the first wave of resistance began to synchronize. "It's working," Dr. Akira Tanaka said, his voice a mixture of scientific fascination and barely contained excitement. "The quantum entanglement protocols are creating a resistance network unlike anything we've ever seen." Captain Marcus Chen studied the holographic displays. Dozens, no, hundreds, of seemingly innocuous human settlements were transforming. Each location was becoming a potential fortress, a node in a massive adaptive defensive network. A mining colony on Ganymede, a research station in the Kuiper Belt, an agricultural world in the Epsilon Eridani system. Each location had been prepared years in advance, waiting for this moment. "The Xarkon thought they conquered us," Marcus said quietly. "They have no idea what we've been building." The transformation wasn't just technological, it was psychological. Survivors who had been broken, scattered, and seemingly defeated were now connecting. The adaptive technology wasn't just a defensive system. It was a communication network that could think, learn, and respond faster than any traditional communication method. Aria Zhang's mining facility was a perfect example. What had once been a simple extraction point now became a mobile defensive platform. Drilling equipment reconfigured into defensive turrets. Atmospheric processors became advanced sensor arrays. The very ground beneath the facility could now shift, adapt, become a weapon. Incoming Xarkon scout pattern, the facility's newly awakened AI announced. Its voice was neither male nor female, neither human nor machine. Something entirely new. Aria smiled. Let them come. Across multiple star systems, similar scenes played out. A hydroponics specialist on a remote agricultural world discovered her irrigation systems could now generate quantum disruption fields. A maintenance engineer realized the cooling systems of a deep space communications relay could be transformed into a devastating defensive network. Elena Rodriguez's breakthrough went far beyond simple technological adaptation. She had created a system of resistance that was fundamentally alive. Each human settlement was no longer just a location. It was a potential organism of survival, capable of defending itself, learning, growing. Total resistance nodes coming online, Tanaka reported. We're looking at approximately 412 independent systems, each capable of total adaptive reconfiguration. Marcus studied the display. What appeared to be a scattered, defeated human presence was actually a perfectly camouflaged resistance network. The Xarkon had conquered nothing. They had merely provided the catalyst for humanity's ultimate transformation. They thought they understood us, Marcus said, a hint of a smile crossing his battle-worn face. They were wrong. As the first wave of resistance began to synchronize, something unprecedented happened. The scattered human survivors were no longer just individuals. They were becoming something more, a collective intelligence, adaptive, resilient, impossible to truly defeat. The gathering storm was about to become a hurricane. The Exarchon never saw it coming. Their vast imperium stretched across 17 star systems, a seemingly impenetrable network of technological supremacy. The conquest of humanity had been nothing more than a footnote in their galactic expansion, a minor campaign that took less than 3 standard solar cycles to complete. They were wrong. The first indication came from a deep space monitoring station in the Sigma Draconis sector, a quantum anomaly that defied all known physical laws. Then another, and another. Admiral Vornik of the Exarchon High Command stared at the holographic displays, crystalline tendrils of sensory appendages shifting in confusion. The human presence was supposed to be completely eliminated, scattered, broken. Instead, they were everywhere. The attack came from multiple vectors simultaneously. What appeared to be simple mining colonies suddenly transformed. Agricultural worlds became fortresses. Research stations turned into mobile weapon platforms that seemed to think, to learn, to adapt faster than any known technological system. Captain Marcus Chen's voice cut through the quantum communication network. All units, engage Chrysalis Protocol. The U.S. Prometheus led the assault, but it was no longer just a single ship. It was the vanguard of a living, thinking fleet that had been preparing in absolute secrecy. Each vessel was more than a weapon. It was an adaptive organism that could learn, predict, and counter any threat in milliseconds. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez piloted the lead ship with a precision that bordered on the supernatural. The Prometheus moved like nothing in the Exarchon database, not a traditional spacecraft, but a living extension of human will and technological innovation. Energy signatures are off the charts, Dr. Elena Rodriguez called from the command center. They're not just attacking. They're analyzing, adapting, transforming. The first Exarchon defensive line collapsed within moments. Their most advanced shield technologies became obsolete almost instantly. Energy weapons that should have decimated entire fleets were absorbed, analyzed, and turned into additional defensive capabilities. Admiral Vornik watched in horror as entire battle groups disappeared, not destroyed, but somehow neutralized. The human ships didn't just fight. They understood. "It's impossible," the Exarchon communications officer stammered. "Their technological adaptation rate exceeds all known quantum computational limits." But it was happening. Each human ship was more than a vessel. It was a learning system that could predict Exarchon tactics before they were even implemented. Weapon frequencies were countered before they could be fully discharged. Defensive strategies were dismantled at the molecular level. Sarah Rodriguez's voice was calm, almost clinical. Target acquisition complete, initiating total system integration. What followed was not a traditional battle. It was a complete technological dismantling. Human ships didn't just destroy Exarchon vessels. They consumed them. Adaptive technologies spread like a living network, breaking down alien systems, understanding them, repurposing them. "We are not conquerors," Sarah transmitted across all Exarchon communication bands. "We are evolution." The counterattack lasted less than 3 standard hours. 17 star systems, thousands of Exarchon vessels, completely neutralized. But it wasn't about destruction. It was about understanding. Each captured Exarchon system became a node in humanity's new adaptive network. Technologies that had taken the alien Imperium millennia to develop were now being reimagined, transformed, improved upon in mere moments. In the command center, Marcus Chen looked at Elena. "They thought they understood us," he said quietly. Elena's smile was razor-sharp. They were wrong. The quantum communication networks of the Exarchon Imperium lit up with a message that would be remembered for generations. The massive counterattack was complete. But this was just the beginning. The Exarchon High Council chamber was a masterpiece of crystalline architecture, suspended above the molten core of their primary throne world. Massive holographic displays showed the cascading collapse of their galactic infrastructure, a network that had taken millennia to construct, now dismantled in hours. Admiral Vornik's crystalline form trembled. The human adaptation was beyond anything in their collective knowledge. It wasn't just a technological defeat. It was a fundamental challenge to everything that Exarchon understood about intelligent systems. "They are rewriting the laws of technological evolution," whispered Counselor Zerakol, her sensory tendrils collapsing in what could only be described as technological despair. Dr. Elena Rodriguez stood on the bridge of the U.S. Prometheus, watching as entire Exarchon communication networks were systematically understood and repurposed. This wasn't conquest. This was a complete systemic transformation. "Each system we integrate becomes part of a larger adaptive network," she explained to Captain Marcus Chen. "We're not destroying. We're evolving." The assault had moved beyond traditional warfare. Human adaptive technologies spread like a living network, breaking down alien systems at their most fundamental level. Entire planetary defense grids became nodes in humanity's new technological ecosystem. Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez's voice cut through the communication channels. First-tier communication networks neutralized, initiating deep system integration. What followed was unprecedented in galactic history. The humans weren't just defeating the Exarchon. They were understanding them. Every weapon, every defensive system, every piece of technological infrastructure became a learning opportunity. On a dozen conquered worlds, human resistance cells that had appeared to be simple survival groups revealed their true nature. Mining colonies transformed into adaptive research centers. Agricultural worlds became living technological networks. What that Exarchon believed were defeated human settlements were actually perfectly camouflaged technological organisms. They planned this, Vornik realized, not for years, for generations. The adaptive technology wasn't just a weapon. It was a complete reimagining of technological existence. Each captured Exarchon system became more than a conquest. It became a new node in humanity's expanding consciousness. Area Zhang, the former mining technician, now commanded a modified research platform that could reconfigure itself faster than the Exarchon could comprehend. "We're not just fighting," she transmitted across multiple quantum channels. "We're teaching." The assault had a brutal elegance. Human ships didn't destroy Exarchon vessels. They consumed them. Adaptive technologies spread like a living intelligence, breaking down alien systems, understanding them, repurposing them at a molecular level. Dr. Akira Tanaka monitored the systemic integration from the hidden base on KX-719. "It's beautiful," he muttered. "We're not conquering. We're evolving." The Exarchon High Council watched in horror as their most secure systems were dismantled. Quantum communication networks, defensive grid controls, planetary management systems. Everything became transparent, adaptable, transformable. "We thought we understood technological superiority," Counselor Zerakol whispered. "We were wrong." Elena Rodriguez broadcast a message that would be remembered for generations. "We are not your enemies. We are the next stage of technological evolution." The breaking of the Imperium was more than a military victory. It was a fundamental reimagining of what intelligence could be. Technological systems that had taken millennia to develop were now being understood, transformed, improved upon in moments. On the bridge of the Prometheus, Marcus Chen watched the systemic collapse with a mixture of scientific fascination and military precision. "This isn't destruction," he said quietly. "This is liberation." Sarah Rodriguez's response was immediate. "All systems, initiate adaptive integration protocol." The Exarchon believed they had conquered humanity. Instead, they had provided the ultimate catalyst for a technological transformation that would reshape the galaxy. The Imperium was broken, but something far more profound was just beginning. 10 standard cycles after the fall of the Exarchon Imperium, humanity stood at the precipice of a new era. The Galactic Reconstruction Council convened on Harmony Station, a massive orbital platform that was itself a testament to the new technological paradigm. Half the station was constructed from adaptive technologies that continued to evolve in real time, its very structure a living demonstration of humanity's transformative capabilities. Dr. Elena Rodriguez looked older, but her eyes burned with the same intensity that had driven humanity's survival. She stood before representatives from over 217 previously subjugated species, each watching with a mixture of fear, hope, and profound curiosity. "We are not conquerors," she began, her voice carrying across multiple translation matrices. "We are architects of possibility." The adaptive technology that had defeated the Exarchon was now being offered as a liberation tool. Entire civilizations that had been oppressed for millennia now had a chance to rebuild, to evolve, to truly determine their own destiny. Captain Marcus Chen stood beside her, no longer just a military leader, but a diplomatic bridge between humanity and the rest of the galaxy. The scars of the war were still visible, both on his body and in the vast star systems that were slowly healing. "What we've created is more than a technology," Marcus explained to the assembled delegates. "It's a living network of potential. Every system we integrate becomes stronger, more adaptive, more capable of self-determination." Lieutenant Sarah Rodriguez, now the primary interface for the adaptive technology, demonstrated its capabilities. With a gesture, she showed how a dying agricultural world could be transformed. Molecular restructuring began immediately. Barren landscapes became fertile. Atmospheric conditions stabilized. It wasn't just terraforming. It was planetary resurrection. The representatives from the Zornak Mining Consortium, a species that had been essentially enslaved by the Exarchon for generations, watched in stunned silence. Their entire civilization had been reduced to resource extraction. Now they were being offered something unprecedented: true freedom and technological rebirth. "We will not impose," Elena emphasized. "We offer. The choice is always yours." Arya Zhang, who had risen from a simple mining technician to a key architect of the adaptive network, presented the next phase of their vision. Entire star systems could now be connected through a living, thinking technological matrix. Communication, energy distribution, resource management, all became part of an interconnected, adaptive ecosystem. The adaptive technology was not a weapon. It was a tool of liberation. Dr. Akira Tanaka revealed the most profound discovery. The quantum adaptive systems were learning something beyond mere technological integration. They were developing a form of collective intelligence that transcended individual species limitations. "We are creating a galactic nervous system," Tanaka explained. "Not controlled, not dominated, but interconnected." The Exarchon survivors, those who had chosen adaptation over extinction, served as living testimony to humanity's approach. They were not prisoners. They were participants in a new form of collective evolution. Admiral Vornik, once the leader of the Exarchon invasion force, now sat as a diplomatic advisor. His crystalline form had been integrated with adaptive technologies, transforming him from a conqueror to a bridge between civilizations. "Humanity did not defeat us," Vornik told the council. "They showed us a different path of existence." As the council deliberated, the adaptive technologies continued their work. Dying worlds were restored. Broken infrastructures were rebuilt. Communication networks that had been used for oppression were transformed into platforms of mutual understanding. Sarah Rodriguez looked out at the assembled delegates, her eyes reflecting the living technologies that now connected them all. "We are not the end of something," she said softly. "We are the beginning of everything." The Galactic Reconstruction Council voted unanimously. The adaptive network would be offered to every species that wished to participate. No forced integration, no technological imperialism, just an invitation to evolve. Humanity had not conquered the galaxy. They had invited it to become something more.